Audio. Okay, let's get everything started. That's set. Hello, anybody who was already waiting. Gonna try to keep this under half an hour. I'll probably fail. But anyways, dismiss that, synchronize that. Synced, okay. And I have this genius idea that I realized I could just have a blank Google Doc open, and instead of drawing out letters on the map to write words, I can type them. Because occasionally I have these, like, you know, above zero IQ moments myself. But anyways, situation has shifted and is nearing an end. We'll speak about that after a couple minutes. Let some people filter in. I found out I was right regionally, at least, as my parents on their way back up from their Caribbean trip, all we live in this area around Charleston, South Carolina, or technically I'm in exile here. I used to live in Alaska, et cetera, et cetera. 2020 happened, lost my job, never got it back, so I had to come down here and live in exile. But anyways, all around here and down the coast, on their drives and stuff, the gas prices have always been basically the same as they are right around here. And I expected at the rate of increase that by the time they returned a couple days ago, it would probably be around $4.60. And they said it was all along the drive back. Around here, specifically within this immediate area, for some reason, it has stayed at around four. I'm only doing this with the drawing thing because it's quick and easy since it's just a couple numbers. It stayed around 4:30 instead, and I realized that the reason for that is because the gas stations, at least the ones in this local area, are probably compensating by like increasing the massively jacking up the price of like bottles of soda and a cup of coffee inside. Since in the US, at least, every gas station is also like a little convenience store with like drinks and snacks and stuff. So everyone who stops to fill up their fuel tank usually also goes inside and buys like a soda or a bottle of water. And as opposed to like going to the store where a pack of 20 bottles of water will be like $5 for a pack of 20, inside a gas station convenience store, a single bottle of water usually will be like $4 for one bottle because most people will be in the sunk cost fallacy of, well, they're already there, so I might as well just pay the $4. So a lot of the gas stations have compensated for keeping their gas price low, their fuel price low, by upping the price of stuff inside, since they know people will still fall for the sunk cost fallacy. So now it's like $6 for a single bottle of water. And seeing that the gas price at each of these stations, at least in this, again, just in this area, is like still lower than a lot of others, that lures people into that particular station. And then as people, Americans at least do, they go in and they buy other stuff like from the convenience store part. And despite the fact that the price will be extreme, and like the coffee is even more expensive than Starbucks, for example, they'll still pay it because of the I guess not sunk cost fallacy, more like sunk time fallacy. In that they're already here and it would take time to go like to another place where the stuff would be cheaper. All right, now people should be here. Okay, two living people and plus three other people. That's good enough. So, looks like this is actually coming to an end and just about 2 weeks away from when Iran's floating storage would run out. So, to recap that, for everyone who doesn't know, blah, 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 U.S. has been blockading any oil tankers coming in and out of Iran. Iran filled up the last of its onshore storage tanks by the later part of April. And since then, they have been avoiding shut ins by bringing out a bunch of old, decommissioned, but not yet disassembled oil tankers that are like have been sitting in port for decades and filling those up, using them as floating storage, and also tapering down their output because at large output fields you can also just draw a really crude pipeline thing here. Instead of completely shutting it in, you can also turn like the crank handle and do a little bit of a cutoff there, taper down the rate of outflow a little bit. And through a combination of such things, it looked like they were probably going to run through their floating storage uh, sometime between like June 8th and 11th, really roughly. Don't take that number as exact. So the US's idea was to push them up to that point, see how much it made them budge, if at all. And turns out it did make them budge somewhat, as Iran would be willing, if it had to shut in that production and just tank the damage to its fields, but it doesn't want to. Again, also because the Iranian government is actually not stupid, but there's a limit to how far they were willing to concede. And it apparently was far enough for the US, or in this case, in particular for Trump. So the deal is there, and Iran has already over the last day and a half begun to start allowing traffic to restore. It's going to take a long time for anything to restore completely, obviously, but for the first time since the war began, over the last 24 hours, more than 20 ships came and went in total through the strait, versus a normal daily number pre-war of about 140 or 150. But this is the first time since the start of the war uh, that the number of ships going through in both directions combined actually has a 2 in front of it. I think the highest number previously in the middle of the war was like 17 during those brief 3 days where Iran was okay with everything before the U.S. then said it was going to blockade Iran, in which case Iran said, okay, then, well, uno reverse card. And as a indicator that it is coming is also something I had completely overlooked is in Iran. Let me draw the Wi-Fi signal thing. The internet, all of a sudden, over the last 12 hours, has been coming back online. So that was probably a bit of a cop-out deal added on by like the Trump admin specifically, so that he will have something additional publicly to like present as a win back home over here. He can say that he made the Ayatollah restore the internet. Therefore, Trump himself, in his eyes, restored freedom to the Iranian people, even though he didn't. But the different the original positions were obviously from the U.S.'s point. Uh, Originally was no nuclear anything, and at Israel's behest, no more missiles, and also no more proxies. And this one, the third one, you remember I told you a week ago, I suspected the way that one's going to be dealt with, and that the current administration is going to get around that one is just by not talking about it again and pretending that that never existed. Which, looking at the most recent iterations of the negotiations back and forth, neither side has actually mentioned that part anymore. So actually, the Iranian government is also playing along with that particular part of let's just pretend that one was never there. So looks like I was right on that angle. Uh, the U.S. dropped the no more missiles thing publicly because that was always stupid, and that was Israel's demand in particular. Actually, uh, Israel's pretty pissed about that one, but they're kind of slightly relearning that they're actually the vassal state, uh, but they do have a bit of unbalanced political influence in the U.S. through APAC, and the no nuclear anything, the U.S. had reduced to simply no nukes, which Iran. I don't think there's a way for me to make a check mark. Is this just a okay? That's just a check thing. Is there a way? I don't think there's a way to make a check mark. All right, I'll just draw it in this case, in which Iran agreed to, at least verbally, but they're absolutely still going to pursue nukes after this. But and also tacked on was turn over the nuclear material, which Iran actually has agreed to, with their only precondition being that as long as it's not turned over to the US specifically. So they don't really care. They'll turn it over to Russia, China, Brazil, Zimbabwe, Jamaica. They don't really care. And let's see, from Iran's angle, not in any particular order, so we'll just do dashes. They had U.S. leaves the Middle East altogether, which was never going to happen. They own the strait, which they have since dropped in exchange for getting their money back, their hundreds of billions that are frozen outside of the country, which the U.S. has budged and agreed on that point. Now that they, since it's since Iran gave up the whole we control the strait and get infinite money from it thing in exchange for a specific one-time subset of money, the U.S. agreed to that and publicly had agreed to up to 30 billion, but now has to avoid the language since Trump was already getting in hot water with some of his most fervent supporters since he, previously lambasted Obama for giving Iran $1 billion. Everyone, who previously liked him, except for the few people in the cult who still won't leave, everyone was starting to get mad since he's going to give, Iran $30 billion, and 30 is a lot more than one for those who can do math at least. To avoid angering them any further, instead of publicly stating that the number will be more than just 30 out of the two. And on the U.S.'s end, the U.S. is leaving Syria. That part, Iran is going to take that as a win, even though it's not technically a result of the negotiation stuff. The U.S. was already pulling out of Syria anyways as part of cost cutting, but Iran regardless of whether it came as a result of this or not, that is technically a win for Iran in their books. So they're going to take it. So U.S. leaving the Middle East altogether. Iran is settling for the U.S. leaving Syria. Ah, and what was? Oh, yeah. Also, well, sorry, I forgot the one other main thing for Iran that was like maximalist at the start was that they can do nuclear anything and not concede to any like any suppression of nuclear capabilities, of which they have conceded on that, so they're willing to roll that back at least publicly until in the future they resume trying to make nukes because why wouldn't they at this point? It's kind of been proven to them that having them would likely be a beneficial idea. All right, so that is how things played out as of the moment. Everyone panicked at first for a few hours because it looked like things might have fallen apart because there was a short engagement between a few F-35s and some Iranian shore defenses, but that was just a screw up on both ends. The pilots and the Iranian and the IRGC guys on the coast both kind of got like a bit jumpy at the first things they saw and interpreted what they saw as like an imminent restart of stuff, and they both reacted in such a way. But that's been dealt with and hashed out for the moment. Uh, and am I forgetting anything? I don't know. Let me check with you guys. Well, you guys are dead. Oh, we're up to 12. Sorry, anybody who's late. As always, you can scroll back along the timeline to the start. So that's basically everything Middle East wise, at least for the moment. I do feel like I'm forgetting something though. But anyways, moving on to Cuba now, though, as U.S. carrier strike group is now near the island, as even though the Cuban government has already, uh, I'm not the artist, Anya's the artist for Dream War, so I can't draw, so this is the best you're going to get for a flag. Uh, Cuba has already acquiesced. They've already said they'll agree to whatever terms the U.S. government wants, uh, publicly, even like blah blah blah, cut ties with Russia and China, switch over the economic system, only do business deals with the U.S., whatever. But as long as the particular individual people in power in the Cuban government get to stay in power, that's their only like caveat. And it looked like U.S. was going to be okay with that until Trump might be deciding to be Trump. And after the embarrassments of this whole ill-planned misadventure over in Iran, he might want to just bomb something for the sake of bombing something in a case where he knows it will actually be successful and not cause like global economic catastrophic consequences this time. As an attempt, basically an attention throw off, since the other one is not working as well as he would have liked. Here, no, actually, we need to go back to the document, make it even bigger. Let's go up to 48. So they tried aliens, the aliens distraction, as there have been two rounds so far in the U.S. of releasing all the UFO documents here. Humiliate myself some more with some of my best flying saucer drawing attempts. So they released a bunch of the aliens documents as an attempt to try to distract everyone from the fact that he's ruining their lives. He had the who I don't know whichever bimbo minion he has basically like went to the press and pointed away and was like, "Look, aliens," and it's not really working. We're at that point where, despite the fact that it's not actually aliens, most of it's aircraft testing, and also most of it's just like cringe levels of fake. Even if it were actually aliens, we are at the point where nobody cares. Right. I mean, even if it were, they're literally all that's in these videos would just be showing aliens quite literally digging around, like teenagers who I don't know stole their dad's motorcycle and are riding it down the highway next to the beach or something. So the aliens distraction wasn't working. So it's gonna make Cuba a bigger show than it would have been, since like I said, they already publicly, very vocally said they'll bend for whatever terms are wanted, but that doesn't matter anymore because he wants another like distraction show, I guess, to try to make people forget that he did this whole mess up, even though that's not really how it works because the economic effects of this are going to keep cascading for several months, even if Iran manages to restore like full traffic, even within like say 2 weeks. Within the next 2 weeks, traffic and exports and everything resumes to full levels. The uh, the knockoff effects from this are going to continue for several months, no matter what. Like it at this point, continued price increases and everything and shortages are guaranteed to continue up through and or until like late August or maybe sometime in September. There is no escaping it. That much is locked in. If things don't actually get signed and things continue dragging on, install out, then obviously that goes on further. But late August into September is locked in at this point. That much is inescapable. Oh wait, yeah, that's the one other thing. Sorry, I forgot. The actual final resolution on Iran's nuclear stuff, the way both sides have resolved it is by making the current deal that they are working towards signing uh, have the specific language saying that the nuclear stuff will be discussed. Oops, sorry, will be discussed at a later date. Now, what that actually means, despite the fact that a lot of like news pundits are saying that 60 days specifically has been attached, what that actually means is just both Iran and the US are going to forget about that and pretend it's not there. And the US is going to do the somewhat kind of not too quietly, but sort of quietly just leaves option of things and just gradually pretend that the fight never happened. All right, did we get anything else? We got one other living person. I don't think there was really anything else that I was going to go into. Uh, I finally got I finally got the come on, you can load. I finally got the very lengthy update video going through the different pie chart breakdowns of all the each country's electricity generation, what percentage from which sources. So that's there. Seems I've reached the end of obeying the algorithm being beneficial. As once I got the notice from YouTube that I had to start including something to prove that I'm human, I started doing that. I started showing up on camera at the start of things. That worked for a little bit. Went back up into like better view count numbers. Now starting to come back down to like the 100 or 200 that everything had slipped down into before that. So we're back to the point of doing everything the algorithm says you're supposed to do, but still getting punished for it anyways. I 5 days left in the month. I should still be able to get the regular electricity demand levels video up. I will try to do the oil demand one also, but I can't guarantee anything. With which which explosions? That there's been a lot of explosions. A lot of things explode everywhere every day. If you mean if you mean the one tank that started having a structural failure in California, that's just a thing that happens eventually if the tank is old enough. If it's old enough and it has not been maintained and inspected properly, which is going to be the case with a lot of stuff in the US because of the whole financialization of the economy thing and how everything's owned by private equity now that is just streamlining to try to maximize shareholder dividend payout returns stuff. So deferring maintenance and inspections to many more months apart than they're supposed to be is a thing that's now happening everywhere as a means of since doing that stuff costs money and takes time during which the facility won't be operating, and when it's not operating it's not making money, which thus means that it costs even more money than simply the cost of the inspection and the maintenance. So everybody's now spacing those out as far as they can to try to minimize uh, the cost and losses so they can maximize the shareholder returns, which pumps up their share price, which means more people get attracted and invest into them, which pumps up the share price further. Their value goes up, etc. And the financiers, private equity people who own the companies and then through subsidiaries, all the other things attached to them, gets to have even more money swell into their accounts as the asset value gets inflated, etc., and everything. Uh, all of which should be illegal. The stock market system should be destroyed, and everyone should be in prison. But that's a talk for another day. And pretty soon, at this point, we'll get me labeled as guilty of committing treason. But also, Trump keeps floating the idea of having anyone who's critical of him be considered a domestic terrorist, anyways. So I'm probably on that list already too. I technically was already on a list because I was anti Elon Musk and anti Tesla, and he Trump made that whole like proclamation about how being anti Tesla and discouraging people from buying Teslas uh, was going to be labeled as like an act of financial terrorism because Tesla is a great patriotic American company. Thankfully, that list never really came to be because him and Elon broke up and their whole gay butt buddies relationship is over now. So I never actually, I guess, got put on a real list, but I'll get put on one eventually. Unless anything comes up, that's probably going to be the end of it. Uh, Ebola's not really Ebola's not really a real risk outside of outside of the tropics. Like it can get carried over places, but that's primarily people who were in the tropical regions and then returned with it already incubated in them. Because it's one of the things, like many of the other tropically related stuff that like the hantavirus scare at the moment. It the that particular infection just really requires the host to be in a hot climate perpetually, not and not one that's hot during the day but then cools down at night either. It requires a perpetual hot climate. But hantavirus and Ebola, both in particular, they're not like coronavirus, which is a variant of the flu in reality. Although everyone gets mad if you say that, and they're kind of half right, half wrong for being mad, but it's one of the various uh, things that can cause the flu are coronaviruses, which are a type of virus named after the fact that they kind of look like a crown or look like the sun. But those, like the regular influenza viruses, are very easily spread. Hantavirus and Ebola are things that require uh, close, usually intimate contact. Ebola, especially, you kind of need an exchange of body fluids, almost like an STD, except it can spread non-sexually. Obviously, it can spread through saliva and through if someone sneezes or coughs like right next to you, and you have some kind of open wound or something or some kind of recent cut, then it can get in COVID or like influenza. They can't do like a massive ballooning spread thing. But on top of the close, prolonged, intimate contact part, they are also both tropical diseases that uh, do need the hosts to be in a really hot climate round the clock to actually survive and continue to perpetuate. Look who showed up right at the end. Sorry, bro. This is actually literally the end. You can scroll back through the whole thing, but I was just about to call it here, unless anything, well, anything else specific shows up. I mean, that's kind of too bad because there is and isn't a deal. Although part of the deal, even publicly, as stated publicly, is that they're just going to kind of pretend that there's a deal, but then also just sort of slowly walk away from each other and just not speak about it again. Which was, like I said, that was one of the two main ways of resolution. One of which was kind of just the sort of just stop altogether and then just pretend that it never existed in the first place, which looks like that's the path that's being chosen. All right. Then that is where we stop. I'll try to do the regular videos if I can, but no guarantees. And I will see everybody on should be Friday, I think.